In this episode of the Better Health podcast, body positive fitness influencer Tracey-Lee Lusty and health-focused content creator Shaa'ista Kathree engage in a dynamic conversation about diet and nutrition.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Better Health podcast hosted by Dis-Chem. My name is Tracey-Lee and I'm joined by Shaa'ista, and we're going to be chatting all things diet, nutrition and body positivity today.
So excited, Tracy. Firstly, lovely to meet you. Been a fan for the longest time. So I'm really excited to be here with you.
I'm very excited to be here with you as well. And I'm excited to get to know you and to hear all the good things that you have to tell us and everyone who's listening about diet and nutrition, because that's something that's very close to my heart as well, having just gone on a very health-conscious journey myself. But today I just wanted to start off talking about exactly that. You know, I think there's the world that we live in right now, there's just such an emphasis on what we look like and how we present to the world around us. And there's just so much pressure on social media. I don't know if you've found that in your sort of line, in your niche as well, but I've found that, I think being on social media for the last 6 years, there's definitely this underlying pressure to fit a norm, to look a certain way, to speak a certain way, to dress a certain way. And it really can have an impact on yourself, your own, your self-esteem, your self-worth. How do you combat that in the space that you're in?
So you definitely can relate to that, Tracy. I mean, we here with our lashes on and our lipstick on and there's cameras and it's lovely. But somebody watching this at home, as we would be at home in our tracksuit, hair in a bun, looking at that thinking, I need to strive to that. When we all have our beauty moments and our wholesome home moments, and it's just learning that it's not all about what we're seeing on the social media. When it comes to the bodies we're seeing on social media, what I love, and I'm going to turn this around because we know, and I think we acknowledge that the type of bodies we're seeing on social media over the years have led to us as individuals feeling a certain way about ourselves. I'm a mom of a 9-year-old, so I've got to be 9-year-old girl, so I've got to be quite sensitive about that. But I want to turn it around because I love that in the recent, say maybe year or two, I'm seeing a lot more of mums rolling down their gym leggings and showing off their C-section flab or whatever it is. People being a lot more real to their audiences. And I love that. I love that people are embracing the real and allowing everyone to feel that it's okay. It's okay to not be, that perfect.
I love that. And I think that speaks quite directly to my advocacy and sort of the platform that I have on social media in the space that I've occupied for the last 6 years. And that really is that. It really is about, embracing our body in every season and also understanding that our body is going to go through natural size fluctuations, whether it's puberty or a busy work year or becoming a mom. And, these are all very natural things. And I think you're so right and you're so on the money when you say that there has been a change in the landscape online, because I really noticed that and I really feel like I have been also a part of that. And I really feel passionate about...
And thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. I really do feel, passionate about that specific sort of area and just being vulnerable and creating a niche space for real and genuine storytelling, especially when it comes to our bodies, and just being okay and open and just acknowledging that we don't need to be the same. We don't need to all look like the glossy, pages of the magazine or the celebs that we see walking the red carpet. Our uniqueness is what makes us so special.
Absolutely.
So that's something that I've really tried to do. But let's chat a bit more about nutrition, because I feel like there's a lot out there. I feel like this week we're learning about a low carb diet. The next week we're learning about we're doing Atkins.
We're eating cottage cheese right now.
Yes, kale is out, cottage cheese is in. So tell me a little bit more about your sort of ethos and what your beliefs are around nutrition.
Yeah. So I started becoming famous or getting sort of noticed on my platform because of my healthy eating. This must have been about 2016 or so quite a few years ago. I had run a party and event styling business for about 10 years, and I wanted a space on social media where I could post what I wore or what I ate or whatever it was, separate to my business profile. So I started that and just started putting, recipes up and putting poke bowls and acai bowls and those interesting things that I enjoyed making for myself, and the salads that I ate and smoothies and all of that. And people were interested. moms like me, people who wanted to understand or get on a better nutrition journey became interested, and it just snowballed from there. What I love is that it sort of put pressure on me to get my nutrition right and to educate myself on what works best for my body, not just what's trending, and then impart that to my kids as well. We were chatting earlier, Tracy, and we spoke about the concept of eating to live and not living to eat. And we both come from families, right, that culturally eating's a big thing.
Yes.
It's a huge thing. It's almost like, Tracy, why aren't you eating that? Or Shani, I mean, surely you can be eating that extra slice of whatever. But I think it's that the cultures that we come from and just breaking those stereotypes and those norms, and people understanding and learning that what we ate or what we eat at cultural whatevers that we're going to, and then daily lives and the purpose for what we eat. And like I was telling you earlier, I had to actually tell the kids the other day, yes, it's fine. Burgers and fries is fine. There's a time and place for that food. But on the daily, we need to make sure that we're eating so that when we get to school, we're fueled enough till lunch break. And when we get to lunch break, we're fueled enough till soccer practice. And they were like, it really hit them. Because if you aren't conditioning your kids or reminding them of that, it's almost like, no, we just eat because it tastes good. So just instilling that in my kids has been a big thing. Yeah.
I really like what you're saying, because I feel like I can actually identify a lot with that. So 2 things. Obviously, as a child, I grew up in a household where I think my long-standing issues with weight started in the home. So not knowing, not eating a proper balanced plate of food, not being educated, with like what carb is, what a protein is, what a vegetable is, and why they're important macronutrients for development. Not to blame parents, because we're all in control, but I do think that how you are raised definitely can have a long-term effect on, whether or not you may develop obesity one day, or you may not, or you might be an active person, or you might not. Lifestyle is really important. Yes, there's a genetic component, but lifestyle also really, really plays into that. So I love that you are educating your kids as well, and bringing them up to fully actually understand that, food is friends. There's no bad food. And I think that also is such a, in society, we love to say, oh, that's a naughty chocolate, or that's a good carrot, or we sort of categorize food as good and bad, and we demonize, fast food, for example.
Yeah.
But what I've really learned, sort of, I think, throughout the last 2 decades, probably the last 2 decades of my life, is that this notion of, food for fuel, or so living to eat and eating to live, there's such a balance in between that, because I also don't believe that, food is only fuel. Like, we need to also enjoy food. We need,
absolutely, a balance.
We need to live and enjoy, and food is such a social thing as well, coming together around a table and celebrating occasions with food. I lived so much of my life scared and counting calories in the back of my head and restricting and binging. Some people may know that I've been very open about my history with disordered eating, and that really did stem from just like lack of education and not actually knowing like how macronutrients, on the pyramid, how it actually forms, and then you develop a very negative relationship with food. And I think, for me, that's really culminated in the last year. I know you have been following me for a while, so thank you. And you have obviously seen the journey that I've embarked on. But for those that don't know, a year ago, not even a year ago, 9 months ago, I made the decision to undergo something called bariatric surgery. And for those people who don't know what bariatric surgery is,
tell me, Tracy.
Yeah, because I know it's a little bit of like like you've maybe seen it on my 600-pound life, where they're breaking down doors to get the person out of the bed into the hospital. And yes, there is that side of the spectrum where it can be so bad that is what happens, but it's also not as scary as it sounds. And I think the problem with bariatrics is that people don't know about it. They don't understand what bariatric surgery is. They don't know why it's necessary. And I think there's so much...
And when it can be used.
Fear-mongering in society about it, and when it can be used. So not to go into all the crazy hectic science behind the exact procedure that I had, but just to explain sort of why or why I deemed it necessary at this point in my life to undergo something like that, is because I have been on yo-yo diets, fad diets, every single diet you could possibly imagine since the age of 7. I started my
Since the age of 7.
So my
I've
disorder.
got a 9-year-old.
Exactly.
And that
So
just
now,
scares me.
imagine
to
your
my
9-year-old
core.
was, halving her sandwich or not having, was deathly afraid of having a treat in her lunchbox. Like
I
this
don't
was,
even want to raise that with my 12-year-old son,
Exactly.
let alone with my 9-year-old. So I can
Exactly.
only imagine. I mean, it's been a lifelong struggle.
It has been.
Yeah.
So I'm 32 years old now. So I mean, it's almost, it's more than almost 80% of my life where I have consistently been in a binge restrict or some sort of dietary cycle. And
Did this come from, Tracy, though, family deeming your body in a certain way, judging you? Did it come from external? Did it come from the people around you? Did it come from things you were reading or seeing at that time?
I think for me, look, my family's always been very supportive, and I've never had, the parent that's like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be eating that, or you shouldn't do that, or you should be training that, or you should do ballet. Or I've never had pushy parents in that sense. So
That's great.
I think for me, like I said earlier, it was very much more the environmental issues. So, we would dish up a plate of food. We're only a family of 3, and I'd be constantly thinking about, I need to eat this quickly so I can dish up a second portion, because the food's going to run out. It was this and we all basically ate like that. Both my parents, we just consumed far more from a portion size point of view than what was actually
Necessary.
normal. Normal, inverted commas, I'm going to say. But yeah, so just getting back to then the bariatrics. So obviously this went on for years, and it really, I started fitness school in 2016, and that was the initial, weight loss journey, commitment device. Going to use social media to show this amazing transformation.
And you worked hard.
And I did work hard.
You worked
I did
really
follow,
hard.
A diet at that stage as well.
And the fitness, all of it.
Fitness and everything. Because I have, at that stage, was already seeing the first signs of obesity-related illness very early on. That was 2016. It was just another binge restrict cycle. So no matter what, that weight loss was never going to be sustainable. I didn't know that then. I know it now. And I've been very vocal about that. And that is the thing with bariatrics, is that if you're looking for if you have your whole life, you can relate with my story, and you gain it, you lose it, and then you gain it, and it's big swings and roundabouts. And for me, it was...
And that's pressure on your body.
Exactly.
Pressure on your organs.
And your organs, the visceral fat around your organs, that's what's the most dangerous. You might not see it on the outside, but it's what's going on inside. So anyway, this is a long way of saying that I got to a point at the end of 2022 where I was pushing almost 150 kilos. And I no longer felt like fitness girl. I felt like a fraud. I was showing up online in a space where I was preaching health, fitness, self-love, all these things, which I believed, and I still have loved my body in every season. There wasn't a time where I looked in the mirror and I was like, oh my God, goodness, you girl, you got to do something. It was never from that point of view. It was never an aesthetic reason. It was I just realized I was on my honeymoon, and people know the story. And I couldn't parasail with my husband because I was too heavy. I couldn't horse ride because the poor horse would have collapsed. I couldn't pull myself up into the boat after snorkeling. It took 3 grown men to physically haul me on to the boat. And I just realized in that moment that
the quality of life.
Yeah. It wasn't an aesthetic thing. There was never an aesthetic thing for me. It was, this is not the life that I want to live. I know who I am inside. I know I am fitness girl. I know that this is my calling, and my platform is to inspire. And being a body positive activist, for me, I've always said that being body positive is about ensuring that your body is functioning healthily and optimally for you. So that is sort of how I also reconciled having bariatric surgery, which is obviously the consequence of that is a lot of weight loss, with the fact that I'm also a body positive activist who essentially is supposed to accept her body in every season and love your body no matter what.
But if your body isn't serving you and isn't functioning the way you need it to, that's when it's a problem.
Exactly.
And I love that with your platform, you're using it to advocate for the fact that it's not just aesthetics. When I say to people, and if you look at me, you would, and through my life, have been somewhat slim, right? But I know what my body feels like. I know what I feel like when I'm running, when I'm about 4 or 5 kilos heavier.
Yeah.
I feel it. I feel when I'm running with my kids. And it's not aesthetic again, because someone can say to me, oh, but you're slim. Why are you at the gym every day? Why are you eating salads again? You don't need to. we all need to. We all need to be eating nutritious food. And it's not about the aesthetics. It's how you're feeling inside.
Absolutely.
If your body's still functioning optimally at 5 kilos heavier and you're comfortable with that, with the way you're feeling and with the way you're looking, then that's okay. But if it's, not okay with how you're feeling and energy levels or whatever, and you can't function to your best and optimally, then that's when it's a problem.
I love that.
People really have that misconception.
No, absolutely. And I love that you said that, because it's exactly what I was feeling in that period where I was making the decision whether or not like I was going to go through with the surgery or not. And that's the thing, is that people say, oh, well, can you be, overweight and be fit? Is that something that like is really possible? And I feel like I'm the poster child for that.
Yeah,
because
I've seen ladies in my grid class who, definitely testament to that. And I've seen how hard you've been working, in the gym over the years.
And that's because I've always been in fitness school, and I was always sporty in school, and I was, I was a chubby kid, and I was, I guess chubby, you could say, throughout high school as well. I mean, there were periods where I was very slim when I was playing water polo, but sport's always been there for me. And fitness and health has always been there for me. I might have been, on this side of the spectrum sometimes, and then on this side of the spectrum, other times, but it's always been the center of like who I am and my core identity. So when people say, I've been interviewed various times about, the same question, like, well, can you really be, fit and healthy if you're overweight or, obese, even go as far to say that. And I definitely think you can, because up until 110, 120, 130 even, I felt physically fine, and my bloods were physically fine. Like they were normal. I was still training every day in the gym, showing that you don't have to be limited by your size to be able to do certain things. However, they were far harder. Yeah, and the stress that it was putting on my organs, my health, that was what was silent. So I knew once I got over that threshold of 130, and it was snowballing, and there's nothing I could do about it. A lot of people say to me, but you've done the diet before. How come you couldn't just, lose the weight? Why did you have to go and do such a drastic surgery? And it's so expensive, and like, it's, you like rearranging the plumbing in your stomach, and like surely you could have just dieted.
There's always an opinion.
But what I think, and this is what ties in, I think, nicely with your knowledge of nutrition, is that diets and proper medical advice, when it comes from a proper nutritionist or dietitian, when you are following proper medical nutritional advice, 100% they can work. And that is on the assumption that you do not have any underlying other health conditions.
Absolutely.
Then it works and it's sustainable. Yeah. However, when you do have a chronic illness like obesity, it gets to a point where when your BMI reaches a certain threshold, in my case it was over 50, there really is no going back. No matter how hard you try, no matter what caloric deficit you're in, no matter how much you're training, as it was very obvious by what I was putting out on my profile for the last 3 years, your body is so inflamed that it is just not a conducive environment for weight loss. Yeah. And yes, you might lose 5 kilos. Yes, you might lose 10 kilos. You will almost 100% gain that back. And when you are obese and you have 60 kilos, 70 kilos, 80 kilos to lose, unfortunately at that point, the only option at that stage is where I was at the end of last year, is weight loss medication, such as we've heard a lot in the media about Ozempic and Saxenda.
Have you tried it? Have you been ever on Ozempic?
So I did take Saxenda for 12 weeks pre-op, in my pre-op phase, to help shed as much weight as I could. I mean, it was negligible. It was about 10 kilos. And I just followed like a normal, balanced diet during that time. So the medication does work. However, it's a chronic medication. Yes. I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm finally living a life that I missed out on for so long. And I finally feel like I'm me.
I'd say it's worth it then.
It is worth it.
You made the right decision and it's worth it.
What tips could you give, to new moms that are sort of embarking on this journey for like the first time, and, nutrition is something that they're probably not even thinking about right now. They're a brand new baby. What would you say, especially about like the guilt? I mean, you mentioned the mom guilt, and like, what would you say to someone sort of embarking on this sort of next 18 years, bringing up a child, and what like values around nutrition is something that you sort of would encourage they sort of bring into their households?
Yeah. So I'm constantly explaining to them, it's not like eat your carrots or you need to be eating your broccoli. I explain what that could potentially do for you. So if you're eating that, do you know that it could do
education? That's what I love.
Like my little one, Yara, she doesn't like eating like green peppers, and then carrots need to be cooked a certain way, and blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes. So I tell her, and this is clever. I think I'm quite smart to do this. So I tell her, so eat the salad, but don't exclude, okay? Exclude as much as you want of whatever, but put in a little slice of tomato. Put it in a little slice of the green pepper for whatever she doesn't like. And she's like, oh, but I don't like the taste. I said, yes, but when it digests in your body, your gut is going to love that. And that diverse food groups that you're having in your body is going to give you a better gut health. And they're cueing my parents saying, do you keep having to talk about gut health at the table? But she understands then.
Yeah.
So when we gone out to eat and I put a little piece of something she doesn't like in her plate, there's no argument.
Yeah.
Because she understands exactly why I'm doing that.
Exactly.
And I just think just educating on why we should eat this, or I'll explain, okay, if you want that sugary cereal, okay, but by an hour into school, you're going to be tired. You aren't going to know your math sums, and you aren't going to do so well in that spelling test. But if you're eating these oats with the chia seeds that I just made, you're probably going to do really well.
Yeah. But I love that. I love that you allow them. I mean, you raise them that they can eat sort of anything, but as long as it's a balanced plate. I think for me, what definitely contributed to sort of my maybe negative health choices or negative food group choices growing up and well into my 20s and even my 30s is that there was this restriction as a kid. So my mom and my dad obviously could see that I was, an overweight kid. So for me, the concept of having a little fruit roll even, or dried fruit, or a little packet of cheddars or something in my lunchbox was so foreign. So there was restriction from day one because they were trying to obviously rein in my weight. And what would happen is I'd go seek that out in school. So I would beg other kids, or I would, ask to borrow 1 rand so I could get like flaky shells from the tuck shop, and that was the problem. So I love what you're doing because I think had that been sort of instilled in me from a young age that you can have the burger, and have the tomato, have a little side salad. I feel like there wouldn't be this like constant need.
Yeah.
There wouldn't have been this need in my life to like, associate sort of higher calorie denser foods like dried fruit or nuts or chips or whatever as like the demon. And like now I need to restrict for the whole day so that I can have a packet of chips. And then basically just get no nutrition and no calories in for the whole day. And then again, this binge restrict cycle continues. So I really love like what you're doing. And I love that you are talking about it online because I think if we can get the kids young, we can solve a lot of problems. So
the sad thing is that there's so many people, and I'm talking about moms now, who like the comments I could get on what I post, where you see even amongst our generation, there's just so much lack of education.
100%.
And, we spoke about social platforms, the algorithm serving us beautiful bodies, gorgeous faces, and us feeling inferior about ourselves or less about ourselves. But I want to do a positive spin on that. The algorithm allows us to see what we want to see, right? So curate your feed and start looking at recipes with healthy salads or ways to increase your fitness in a short space of time at gym, or just things that make you feel better and positive. And I've actively been doing that recently. And I feel now when I go to my Explore feed and I'm looking at my socials, it's a place of positivity. And I curated that like anyone can. So I think as much as there is stuff out there that, can do us wrong and can do us harm, there's as much out there that can just help us as women, empowerment and all of that. I can go to gym sometimes, get changed from my corporate wear and do 20 minutes of cardio when I'm out. Before anyone can start talking to me or make a conversation, my friends are like, you going already? You were here for 20 minutes. I was like, and I'll be here tomorrow again for another 20 minutes because that's all I can get in. But I could say to myself, I just have 20 minutes. Let me just go home and scroll on socials for 20 minutes extra. So I really am just pushing to get in or manage my time better.
Yes.
And that 20 minutes that I'm having less with my kids, I'm not feeling guilty about it, because the time when I am with them for that 20 minutes less, I'm making sure that my phone is down and I am present and totally present with them to give them that real quality time for the time that I'm there. So, that's just been helping me.
Shaa'ista, I wanted to chat a little bit more about accessibility around nutrition in South Africa. I think that, it's all good and well, seeing these beautiful plates of food on Instagram and on social media. But the real sort of reality of, our climate in South Africa is that, access to sort of, high protein and nutritious food is quite limited. However, it is available. And I think through education, it's very possible to conclude a nice, nutritious, balanced plate of food. So if you could give like a sort of budget plate of food that, young moms or dads can put together for their kids and just for sort of make maybe a family meal in the week, what would you put on your plate?
So you're so right, Tracy, and I'm glad you brought this up, because everyone has excuses, right, for why they can't exercise and why they can't eat healthy. And one of the common excuses to eating healthy is that this health food just costs too much. But I think we have gone so far because of social media and what we're exposed to in terms of the fancy healthy foods that we almost forgotten that it's actually simple.
The OGs, we've forgotten the OGs.
Exactly, we've forgotten the OGs. And if you go back to like Indian culture, for example, and I know we have curries that can sometimes be oily, but we're knowledgeable now. We know better. You could be doing all the Indian greens and vegetables, which don't cost, an arm and a leg. You could be doing that in a low oil version, and that's perfectly fine. I watched a clever documentary recently that looked at countries where people lived over 100 years of age. Yeah, I watched that recently. And they studied what people of those regions ate. And they realized that people in those regions still ate the way their forefathers ate or generations before them ate. And it was mostly simple foods that grew on the earth in that region. They ate that. They lived simple lives with far less stress than we did, and they were happy.
Yeah.
So maybe the answer is just going back to basics, going back to the OGs, and going back to what's simple. Yeah.
And this goes back to what I've chatted about continuously online, is that you can never look at someone and assume their health.
Exactly.
So a lot of people will do that. They would have looked at me at, 100 kilos in the gym and be like, oh, she just needs to cut back on the Mackie D's, And actually, it's so great that we're having this conversation, because here you, sort of the epitome of visual health. You're slender, you're slim, you're athletic. You've got a background in sports as well. But there was something going on underneath the surface that you weren't even aware of until you actually sought that medical, advice and intervention.
Yeah.
And I think like that's just such a brilliant juxtaposition for both of us, because I feel like it's completely like on two sides of the spectrum. Because for me, I wasn't necessarily, I was physically very big, and I could sustain that bigness for a while until, obviously we mentioned earlier, until it went over the edge. But for a very long time, I actually was very healthy. My bloods were normal. I had normal blood pressure, but I was
look
over
at
100.
Hey?
You come in and you look and you put us together and you think, oh, well, she's definitely the unhealthy one. So I like that you've brought that up, because I think that's also one of those things that I've always said is you literally cannot judge a book by its cover, and you cannot judge someone's health based on what they look like. But when you do feel like things are going awry and you do feel like, you felt lethargic, you know it in your spirit.
Yeah.
And I knew that in Mauritius, I knew there was not alignment in what I was putting out there with what was going on inside. Like I couldn't, it got to that point where I realized now my body was shutting down. And it had become unhealthy. So
it takes a level of bravery to acknowledge that and to take the steps you need to get sorted out.
And publicly as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been so great learning from you. I really do feel that I'm totally living in my nutrition era. So thank you so much for all your amazing tips and tricks. It's been really great chatting to you.
Aw, thank you so much, Tracy. Likewise, your journey has been so inspiring. Like I said, I've been following you for the longest time. So to meet you in person and for us to have this chit chat and talk about it and hopefully inspire others through this.
So as much as we've had so much fun chatting today about nutrition and all these things, I think it's quite important that we legitimize what we've been discussing. So I would love to actually chat to an expert in nutrition, Aziwe Boy. So if we can just have a look at the screen, we can touch base with our expert.
Hi, Tracy and Shaa'ista. My name is Aziwe. I am a registered dietitian, and I'm here to chat a little bit about what it means to actually have a balanced diet, because we hear this word so often, but we don't always understand what that looks like. So a balanced diet is a diet that incorporates a variety of your fruits and vegetables, aiming for those in season, because it is much more light on the pocket, but it's also much better in terms of the amount of nutrients and flavor. You also want to aim for your lean proteins. Variety, again, is a key word in all aspects, because you want to aim for your animal and your plant-based proteins to make sure that it is well balanced. One thing we always forget about when it comes to a balanced diet is your water intake, because you want to make sure that you're also staying hydrated. So usually the recommendation is 6 to 8 glasses. You can always tailor that in terms of your body weight. So if, for instance, for every 10 kilograms of your body weight, making sure you're drinking at least 250 mils of water or a cup of water. So if you weigh 80 kilograms, drinking 8 glasses of water. Now, I know when we speak about a balanced diet, one thing that we always forget to incorporate is our preferences. And an important part of preferences is our culture. Another thing is also just looking into your lifestyle, because a lot of the time, we lead such busy lifestyles, and the thought of cooking can sometimes be really overwhelming. So that's where planning can be really, really helpful to make sure that we're making this a lot more practical. And also, looking into making meals that are simple and easy, or finding healthy alternatives to simple and easy meals, or meals that you already enjoy rather, just so that you are still maintaining that amount of nutrients in your diet. Then we've also got the My Plate model, or the Healthy Plate model. Now, this is one of my favorites because it's so practical. Just by looking at your plate, you can know whether or not you're eating healthy. So on your plate, you want to have at least half of a plate of your non-starchy vegetables. So your leafy greens, your broccoli, your green beans, your peppers, your mushrooms, anything that will add flavor is always completely acceptable, like your garlic and onion. Then a quarter of your plate, you want to have your starches. Whole grain starches are the main focus, or your brown starches, and your starches that are high in dietary fiber. So that would be any products that have more than 6 grams per 100 gram when you look at the nutrition label. Then when you look at your proteins, you want to aim for proteins that are lean, again, for a quarter of your plate. Keeping in mind also your healthy fats in moderation, which when you look at the Healthy Plate model, takes up a small amount. So that's where you can add the fats for flavor, and also in the cooking process as well. I know that bariatric surgery was a topic of discussion, and this is something that is definitely really important to go through under the guidance of a dietitian. A registered dietitian is able to assist you on your journey to make sure that you're eating a well-balanced diet, a diet that is going to suit your preferences and that is also going to not tarnish your relationship with food. Anyone who doesn't know what bariatric surgery is, it's basically a metabolic surgery of sorts, a surgery for weight loss. So there are alterations that are made to the stomach that actually basically either reduce the stomach size, basically allowing you to be able to eat less food that leads to weight loss. So it is so important to make sure that you're going through this journey with a health professional who can guide you and who can support you through this. As we close, I really want to re-emphasize how important it is to know that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition. Everything is always individualized. We're all different. We have different preferences. We have different medical conditions or medical backgrounds. So it is so important to make sure that our different needs are always met. And that's why if you are struggling and want any additional support in any way, even just to know how to eat healthy and eat in a balanced way, I would always recommend going to see a registered dietitian. to get more guidance.